Global Kids. We're really excited to have you here today and to hear from our incredible Global Kids leaders who did a journey to Japan this past summer, where they learned a whole bunch of things that they're going to tell you about. For those of you who are new to Global Kids, we are a nonprofit educational organization, and our aim is to educate, activate, and inspire young people to take action on critical issues facing our world. And that's what these young people are doing here. You're going to hear who they are and what they've done. But first, we just want to say thank you for coming. We want to say thank you to the people who made this trip possible. So first of all, I want to start with our funders and our sponsors. And we have Marianne here from the Japan Foundation, right over there. Maybe you just want to stand up and just say one thing, or a quick little thing about the Japan Foundation, and just also why you supported this trip.
Yeah, I'm Marianne. I'm from the Japan Foundation. We've been supporting this program for about 3 years, and we're always really happy. One of our main goals is to strengthen and cultivate this next generation of leaders that will participate in the global sphere. And so it's really exciting to see all you guys, travel to Japan. So I'm really excited, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Tonight, but hopefully they're watching via Facebook. We want to thank the Tomodachi Initiative, which is a unique U.S.-Japan collaboration. It's really about cultivating the next generation of leaders both in the U.S. and Japan and building relationships between the two countries. So we're really excited that we're part of that initiative this year. Also, we want to thank Toyota, Mitsubishi, Hitachi, and of course our Young Professionals Committee who helped raise the extra funds that we needed for this trip. And I want to give a big shout out to the two staff who worked tirelessly to make this program the success that it was. So I want to call up Emily Schofield and Matthew Wallace.
So you're about to hear introductions from our 9 wonderful students about who they are and their journey in Japan. But I wanted to give a really brief overview of the program. This is our 4th year going to Japan. In years past, we focused on projects that deal with concepts like home and resiliency, and we really doubled down on those. And we decided to do documentary-style projects, which you'll see in a moment, on 2 different themes. So they're going to introduce themselves, and then we will watch the videos. Starting with Natoya.
Yeah. So, my name is Natoya German.
Where were you?
Sorry. I go to school at Bronxdale High School, and I'm a junior currently.
I'm Jillian Mikowski. I go to Frost High School for the Visual Arts, and I'm a senior.
And I'm Gianella Campos. I go to Notre Dame School and I'm a junior.
My name is Aileen Torres. I go to the High School for Medical Professions and I'm a senior.
Hey everybody, my name is Osamia Arata and I'm a junior at Germans.
Hello everyone, my name is Daniel Torres Lopez and I'm currently a junior right now at William Cullen Bryant High School.
Hi everyone, my name is Real Mason and I'm currently a senior.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kevin Cruz, and I go to Transit Tech as well, and I'm a senior.
My name is Maria Ibanez. I go to the Renaissance Charter School and I'm a junior.
So now we'd like for the first of the 2 videos to be introduced, and if you'll bear with me, we're trying to get it playing again. So please, at length, talk about the first video whenever you're ready.
Okay, so this is the Resilience and Environmental Justice in Japan video. We reflected on 3/11 and the disaster and the vitality of nuclear energy. We went into depth a lot. We learned a lot just simply about how they're feeling about the situation, what specifically happened, and just put this into words. It was a lot. It was just emotional, a lot, very emotional. And we learned about how they're what's it called? I can't find the words. But how they're cleaning up, how they're separating the soil, the impact of what happened to them after the tsunami, and just pretty much their life during this and their story. So yeah.
Visited the Fukushima prefecture in Japan to learn about the March 2011 earthquake, tsunami, and nuclear disaster. We also learned how the region is recovering. We are here to share what we found with you. The Fukushima nuclear reactor was prepared for an earthquake, but not prepared for the subsequent tsunami to be as big as it was. And as a result, there was a meltdown. We spoke to one woman who gave us a very moving account of moving patients from a nursing home on the day of the disaster.
And in the morning of March 11, I said goodbye to my family to go to the office. The federal government announced it to the inhabitants to live 5 kilometers, around 3 miles away from the nuclear power plant. Daiichi nuclear power plant had to be evacuated. So at the moment we have 120 people inside of the facility, and 60 of them were permanently sleeping on the bed, and 40 people can work, but they have Alzheimer's. So in our facility, most of the person who lives in the nursing house cannot move. So one of the problem at the moment is how to be evacuated with the people who cannot move, who cannot talk, and who has Alzheimer. That is the most difficult problem at the moment. But we started to evacuate at 8 a.m. in the morning. So we put all elders into the vehicles, whichever they have. Like, for example, the ambulance and then the vehicles was owned by the workers. They used those vehicles to evacuate. So after the disaster, she couldn't go back to her own house in Tomioka because half of the town was destroyed by tsunamis. She decided to demolish the house, and since after the disaster, she's never ever couldn't live in her house.
Since people lost their homes, they are forced to live in temporary housing set up by the government. Some of this housing was difficult to get into. Before the disaster, survivors lived in wide open rural areas, but the temporary housing they moved into was cramped and small, and more like New York City apartments. The temporary housing ended up lasting 7 years for some.
You can see here, like, these houses are pretty close together, and Keiko was telling me, right, like, when they used to live there, they could hear their next door neighbor and everything. And some of you are from New York, really. You live right next to your neighbor, you can hear them, you're used to it. But imagine being somebody who lived in the countryside, had their own home. Their nearest neighbor was probably 25, how many minute walk?
My neighbor was like almost a mile away.
Yeah, like a mile away. So like a 25-minute walk to your next door neighbor, and you live in, your own land and everything. Can you imagine what kind of shift that is? How stressful that can be to now have to live in such a cramped space and stuff like that. Like, all of that is just something that a lot of people have to suffer through and deal with.
My family is from Okuma, but we were living like those kind of complex temporary housing, and I remember that many volunteering groups come up to the community space and try to help us and give us support us, for example, legend, regulation, physics physical exercise and mental health care and something like that, but now it's gone. Everything is gone. It's because it's been more than 7 years now. And so since all those supports from volunteering group had stopped, now the local government is the main supporter who is trying to contact with the citizens and trying to help them. And a few days ago, actually, one of the lady from the local government visited my apartment, and she asked me like if everything is okay, if your mental health is okay. And now the local government is doing all those kind of supports and cares.
So even though when it happened originally, they had volunteering groups to provide activities like that, because it's been so long since it happened. Even though the people that live here in these residential areas, they still have the pain, they still struggle every day with it. But for everybody else, it's been 7 years, so the pain for them is not as direct. So I don't want to say that they lose interest or something, but their priorities change to something more immediate. However, unfortunately, the people that are here still struggling are left behind, and it's something that the residents of the evacuation zone are kind of being forgotten and left behind.
We were able to go inside the exclusion zone, where we saw buildings that were a time capsule of how they were in 2011. It will be bad enough if the people affected by the disasters just lost their homes, but they also had to deal with the discrimination after 3/11.
I saw the documentary about the guy who was experienced 2 bombing, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Only one guy experienced those 2 bombings though, and now he is 90 years old. He wanted to tell this story. People was suffered from the discrimination of you guys are contaminated, and I don't want to give birth with this woman, something like that. So even 90 years old guy is still carrying the pain inside of himself. I don't know how long it's going to take for me.
Even though we're global kids, we can always make comparisons to our own homes and communities in New York and the US. Like the 3/11 nuclear disaster affected the people and economy of Fukushima, there are nuclear reactors in America that harm local communities.
Before going to Japan, we met with an organization here in New York that fights for environmental justice. We learned that there are many negative side effects of nuclear energy.
In January 2017, Hudson River Keeper, the New York State, and the owners of Indian Point Nuclear Power Station, Entergy, signed a landmark agreement to close the center by 2021. And under this agreement, the 2 aging nuclear reactors at Indian Point will shut down. We now have another waterkeeper organization in Miami, Florida, fighting the Turkey Point nuclear power plant. Turkey Point power plant is leaking radioactive wastewater into the drinking water sources for Miami and South Florida. The other issue around Turkey Point and the community is that a lot of community members around this area are low income, and we have a huge issue about environmental justice. What happens is that people who do not have the resources to fight the industry are the first to suffer.
Government and technical organization itself disrespect our land. They took advantage of our land. And they took advantage of our people ourselves. The technical and the federal government spoke the math of safety of the nuclear power plant. So we believed it. I thought I could go back to my house after a week, so I just packed the all luggage into my small backpack for 3 days. All clothes, little bit important stuff inside of my bag, and everything I left behind of my house. And after that day, it's been 7 years, more than 7 years. The most shockingest scene I've ever seen was the explosion on the TV. The government didn't announce it, just I saw it on the TV. Broadcasting company was faster than the government announcement. That was kind of ridiculous. So I still feel really angry, you know.
We visited a museum dedicated to the history of coal power in Fukushima and why the area became so dependent on nuclear energy in the first place.
As you could see, there was a mining point in Tomioka, but Tomioka didn't have any other industry, so they had to accept the nuclear power plant to build. I think it is difficult to change into the nuclear power plant into the alternative energy quickly because entire the region which has a nuclear power plant is only rely on the nuclear industry. So it is quite difficult to change immediately, but we hope in the future we can decline the amount of the nuclear power plant step by step, and in the future there is no any nuclear power plant in entire of Japan.
We're happy to report that throughout Fukushima, we saw many solar power panels, so the region is on a more sustainable path forward.
The 3/11 disaster is still fresh in the minds of everyone in Fukushima. People acknowledge that there is a long road to recovery. People also have hope for the future. Before the disaster, Tomioka had a population of 20,000. Now it's only about 660. But Tucson is trying to change all that.
So there's a lot of people was coming to, for example, Iwate Prefecture, Miyagi Prefecture, and Fukushima, Iwaki City in Fukushima Prefecture. But since this town, Tomioka, was inside of the exclusion zone, nobody was coming, not only the Tomioka, but also whole Futaba region, nobody was coming to volunteering, of course, and nobody was not living in there, so I decided to build a volunteering organization by myself to help the town. I'm trying to gather the old people time by time, and I'm still I'm still doing to build a new community again.
There is no easy solution to the environmental abuse, either here in America or in Fukushima. But as the next generation of leaders taking this trip open our eyes to global issues that are very important. As global kids, we are dedicated to taking a stand for environmental justice. The movement now has allies all over the world.
So we'll save questions to the end, for the end, but now we'd like to introduce the second video.
So our second video, sorry, can I move the I'm sorry. So our second video was on, like, even though they went through all these struggles with the 3/11 disaster, people in Fukushima were very sweet and kind, and we actually went through a debate with the title. We wanted to call it Heroes of Fukushima because those people were so nice to us, and no matter what they went through, they never showed a bad shoulder. They were always there to give us answers. They were a little hesitant at first, they were a little shy, but then afterwards we gained their trust and they let us in. We worked with a high school, and then we had our translator who also went through the disaster with us. So we made a video on it.
On March 11, 2011, at 2:46 p.m., a 9.1 magnitude earthquake struck Japan. The earthquake caused a tsunami, which destroyed the backup generators in the Fukushima Daiichi power plant to fail.
As a result, a nuclear power plant meltdown occurred, releasing radioactive material into the environment. Evacuation orders were given.
To this day, there are still areas where people are unable to return to, called no-go zones in the Fukushima prefecture. Since then, the people of Fukushima have not only dealt with the recovery efforts such as rebuilding and decontamination, but also the effects of discrimination.
In addition, we visited Futaba Future High School in Hirono, Fukushima.
We interviewed a variety of students and were given the opportunity to learn about their personal and feelings while living in the Fukushima prefecture.
We were also given a chance to speak with fishermen at a local fish market regarding their business and how far it has come since the disaster.
The people of Fukushima are some of the friendliest people I have ever met. Their kind and resilient attitude create a very warm and welcoming atmosphere to visit. Visiting Fukushima has given me a new perspective to take into account into my life that includes learning to be more optimistic even in the hardest of times.
Despite these obstacles, the people have proven to be kind and resilient.
These are their stories.
I want to become
gentle, kind person. The person who can take care of everybody else. Gentle, something like this. I want to be a couple like with anybody else, like happily, peacefully.
And because I like English, this group is English learn more and this. Fukushima is very friendly. Fukushima is very peaceful and it is very famous. And so I like Fukushima's festival and I often go there.
Fukushima have kindness people. So many people kind of kind.
福島の何が好き？
Nature 自然
Nature. She said nature.
人が優しい
The people is really kind. Fukushima. In Fukushima. I love everything. I love everything of Fukushima. I think food is really delicious and the people is really kind and gentle. I love Tomioka, of course. I love the sakura, cherry blossom, tomo, and Tomioka. I'd like you guys to come up to Tomioka during the cherry blossom season in April. You'll see why I love Tomioka. If you come up to Tomioka at the moment. I like nature. I like sea. Obviously, I really love sea actually, but since it's contaminated, I have a really mixed feeling. I love sea. I love hanging out on the beach. Well, since the disaster had happened, I lived outside of Hamadori, coastal region. So I didn't have time to face the reality of my hometown, and I decided to move here and try to face the reality as much as possible now. Like past was just sad, full of anger, hateness, but now I'm trying to get over it from this position. I think it's turning into the positive thinking. It gives me more power actually to meet you guys. It makes me more connect to you guys, and I feel I have friends who
who went through those kind of large situations. So I can be stronger with them. I can fight with this situation.
To sum up our experience, we learned a very important word in Japanese, sasuke.
Would it be okay to teach you to say one word in Fukushima dialect? If it means I'm fine, I'm okay. Sasuke.
We are so happy to have had the opportunity to meet all these amazing people in Fukushima.
All right. So now we'll open it up to questions for our participants. Would anybody like to start? Yes.
So, did they give you a sense of how long the exclusion zone will be uninhabitable?
So, whomever would like to answer, yeah, just indicate that you would, and feel free to.
My name is Daniel, and based on the research, they said and like how long like the contamination for the specific radiation that they had, its half-life is really long. Basically saying like, in order for that material to deteriorate to something that's not radioactive, it takes a very long time. So they said that it'd be like inhabitable for about the next 50 to 70 years. So.
Does anyone else want to add anything? All right. Any other questions? Yes.
How did you guys gain access to the no-go zones, and if you guys know the penalties for like someone being caught in the no-go zone, or let's say like a local, what would be the local penalties for them? And if let's say you guys didn't have permission, if you still like ventured out there, what would happen?
Some of the no-go zones where they are cleaning up, they have declared safe for people to go, or like come back and check out some of the rubble and see what they can find. I'm not really sure about the laws that they have in place, but they do have police officers out there 24/7 looking for people who are who may be looting the area or having any illegal activities going on.
Jillian, minutes away.
Oh, no, you said what I was going to say.
Even when we went to Japan, when we went to Tomioka City, they had like railings or bars separating from the parts that we couldn't enter. So we only went to the place where they had the cherry blossom festival, but we couldn't go to a certain extent. We had to stop at a certain distance because they didn't want us going into the exclusion zone that they haven't started cleaning. Well, that they have started cleaning up, but it's not at the.
They weren't ready for people to come back to yet, so they had, like she said, those areas. But the areas that you're allowed to go into, you have to have a radioactive, not radioactive. What is it called?
The machine.
The machine that tells you how much radiation is around you. So like, you have a certain amount of time within
an hour.
Yeah, I think so. Like if there's a high amount of radiation, you have a certain amount of time where you can stay in there, and after that time you have to get out because it can affect you in very negative ways. But there is there's an area just before the exclusion zone that it still impacted it very harshly, but you could still go in not wearing all the hazmat stuff.
Just as like a follow-up question, so if you were like Keiko and your house was a part of the exclusion zone, could you go back to, what do you need to do in order to get to even visit your home?
Kevin, then you leave.
So basically, some Japanese residents needed permission from the government.
Mm-hmm.
They needed a permit from the government to actually visit their own houses. So pretty much.
And they gave them like a time, like like they had like these little like booklets, and like the lady that was talking, the one that worked at the nursing home, she had like a little like booklet where she like signed when she went in and signed when she got out to like
indicate.
To keep the time limits so that she can go.
So who was in charge of cleaning up the exclusion zones? Was it like locals or like volunteers, like government officials, or like people?
I feel
Daniel, and then you.
Okay, so government planning was definitely involved in this project, but the main people that were involved in helping cleaning up and like setting up the project for cleanup for the next several decades was a company called TEPCO, which was the place where the generators broke down.
And also, like, they were saying how that a lot of the locals actually had to clean it. Like, they didn't have, like, people that came in and tried to help them as much as, like, the locals took initiative to clean it.
And as you saw Tucson on the video, he's from Tomioka City and he's trying to keep the liveliness in his neighborhood alive because he's fighting for his city. As his shirt said, he doesn't want his city to go under the dirt. He wants it to come back to life.
Yeah, and going off that point, we actually learned a lot more about environmental justice. So the power plant, the majority of the power that is sent out went to Tokyo. So the area didn't even reap the benefits of having all the negative externalities. And then also the federal government arbitrarily decided to keep all of the radioactive waste based in Fukushima. So they have two forms of discrimination. They didn't reap the rewards of what they suffered for, and they have to suffer the consequences of having radioactive storage sites in the city.
Well, the way that they're cleaning up in a sense, they're cutting the dirt. I think how many inches was it? 5 inches, and then they're bagging it up and they're sorting through it, making sure like the bigger rocks are put in a certain pile, and then the soil is bagged up, and then they made holes in the ground, which are going to be capped and kept for 30 years, and then it's going to be taken out because therefore that lifetime the soil won't have the same amount of radiation that it had at that time.
Sorry, I think to also kind of explain a little bit better is that because it's in the air, what we normally think of as cleanup isn't what was happening. So originally, it's the government and TEPCO that are trying to decide whether or not it's safe to even enter these areas, because what you see isn't necessarily what's the most dangerous part about it, right? Because it's the air. You can't see what is dangerous. So once what they were saying, once the government and TEPCO had said this is okay for you to go back, then it was on the community and the people to actually do the cleanup, the physical cleanup itself. Because you have to remember too that it was an earthquake and a tsunami and a nuclear meltdown. So there was like minor physical damage, but the real big issue and the reason why people cannot go back to their homes is because of something that you couldn't even see. So it's kind of two parts, which makes it a little bit more complicated, but what they were saying is true, but it's both. So it's both the government and the people's responsibility to be cleaning it up.
What other questions do we have?
Alright, so what was it like dealing with language barriers, even if you weren't just with your translator at all times? Were you able to read body language, or were you able to still really connect to the stories that these people were telling you?
So, for me specifically at my homestay, we relied, me and Gia, a lot on Google Translation. That was our key thing, and then like her, the way that, her facial expressions and just her body language definitely played a part in how she was explaining things to us, but Google Translation was a godsend.
Yeah, during my experience, the language barrier at first, especially with the homestay, was a little difficult at first. But I started to catch on that if you speak with like a certain accent, they kind of understand you. So I try to speak in also in an accent that it sounded similar to theirs, and just slow down the words so that they can understand what was going on. But at the same time, the comprehension was pretty fine.
Yeah, so in my homestay, communication wasn't really that hard. As she said, we use Google Translator. But to me, I try as much as possible to speak really, really slow, and also to use my hand to demonstrate. So I actually don't use full sentences when talking to my homestay mom. I talk to her using certain words, because she really don't speak English that fluent. So I try as much as possible to speak really slow. So when I'm speaking, I demonstrate with my hands. So if I'm to pick word up like that, so it's really easy. So body language.
Does anyone want to talk about your interaction with the other high school students?
So when we went to the high school, at first I was like, oh, they know English, so it's gonna be cool, like we're gonna be able to talk. And they knew English, but they knew like basic English. So it was just they understood us more than other people that lived in Japan. But like we still had to use the same type of like the hand movements, and like we played Uno, and I don't even know. And we learned a game from them, rock, paper, scissors, paper, rock.
Yeah.
So it was a fun experience, even though they didn't know the language. We still had fun. We had like 2 parties with them. So.
Yeah.
You had to go to Japan to learn rock, paper, scissors.
It's scissors, paper, rock. Kevin and
so my experience with the Japanese students, it was fun. I mean, to be honest with you, if I could, I would, put them on a plane to come with the U.S. I really connected with them more than I did with any other kid here in the U.S. I mean, the bond I love you guys, but I bonded with them. They understood me, and it took a lot of tolerance and patience because I had to kind of understand what they were saying, but like how my peers said, taking it slow, taking your time, don't rush into the conversation. Take your time to understand them, look them in the eye like you would with any regular individual. So yeah.
After Natoya mentions what she has to say, I'd like to hear about the gifts, the souvenirs, the omiyagi they gave you.
So my experience, at first when we all went, everyone was shy. So we were in our little corner, but as soon as we started interacting and started learning each other's names and playing games that the translators and the other individuals came up with, it was fun. I even met a friend, I have a friend, especially that I remember, her name is Urara. So she would normally tell me words in Japanese, I'd tell her words in English, and at the end of the day, we end up saying tomodachi.
What kinds of omiyagi did you get? The gifts.
We got a couple. We got a pen that was made out of like cardboard and like thread from like clothing of people that lived in like Fukushima, and like we got that as one of the gifts. Like it was made by one of like the survivors that. So then we also got like origami, and then we got a book that taught us how to do the origami.
And what was special about the book?
It was like really detailed.
What's her name? Shiori?
Yeah, and it was in English.
It was so cool. It was like step by step, handmade. It was like exquisite. Like,
and she gave us each our little bags, and she had our names on it. She actually remembered all our names.
Gia, do you want to?
For me, one of the students that I connected with, his name was Kosei. I know baseball is really popular over there, so we started talking about baseball because I recognized he had a baseball jersey. And right before I left on our last day, he gave me one of his signed baseballs, and that just demonstrated like a lot of generosity.
How many got a Kosei baseball?
Riel, you have something there?
Yeah, I was also gonna talk about Kosei. To this day, I still keep in contact with him, and he's always talking about like Yankees this, Yankees that. Yeah, and like I can't even like the connection that I made with him is unbelievable because even though there's a language barrier or anything like that, we still managed to communicate, and it was awesome, to be honest.
Have you had a question?
Yeah, maybe from someone who hasn't shared yet. And we have a question from someone who's watching as well. So I guess I'll start with my question, and then I can read the one that someone just kind of typed in. But what is it that you learned? You learned a lot of things about Fukushima, about Japan, Japanese culture. What did you actually learn about yourself by going on this trip?
Something I learned about myself, how to be a leader, how to help others, new
also,
No, it was a very good answer. Well, let's go down the line, starting with Maria and now Kevin.
So what I learned about myself while in Japan was, being resilient because, throughout the trip, I saw the people of Fukushima being being resilient even after all the nuclear disasters that happened to them, and the fact that they were able to go through so much pain inspired me, and the fact that these are people who are going through worse things than probably me. So they have it bad. Why is it that I'm complaining? They have a bigger problem than what I'm dealing. So I took that as an inspiration and apply it to my real life. Don't complain. Just move on and forgive yourself. So yeah.
Yeah, I also agree with Kevin, and I found that I can feel compassion for others, like people who I barely even know, or who I've met and spoke to for like a few minutes, and it was amazing the connections that we made with the people there. For example, like the fishermen that we spoke to, they had no idea who we were. We were literally just some strangers from a different country that showed up to ask questions, and they were so nice to us. They acted like they knew us for their whole lives, and it was amazing to see how friendly and cooperative those people are.
For me, I feel like I grew like emotionally, and also just honestly just knowing where my limits are some days, because as a leader, you also want to make sure that as you contribute ideas, that you allow your partners to contribute ideas at the same time. And also, I feel like I learned a lot about myself, like how outgoing I am as a person. We had a karaoke night.
That's another story.
All right, other side.
So about myself, I learned I could be like really inspirational to others. I mean, like in Japan, when I met a student, I actually learned that I could bring like smile to other people, even though I didn't really know them that well. I didn't speak Japanese or any other language they could speak. But I actually learned that I could like make someone feel better, even though I wasn't there for them during the incident, but I was there after, like 7 years after. And I actually get to like meet them and to know them better. And yeah, that was really I actually believed in myself. I really didn't believe before leaving I'm going to Japan. I didn't believe I could actually make someone smile for a day. Like, I didn't know I could like be that funny. But when I got to Japan, I actually like threw some jokes to the student and they were just like laughing and all that. So that's one thing I actually learned about myself.
What I learned about myself was that I actually know what I want to do now. Like, I've always wanted to be like in the medical field, but I never knew like I wanted to like be a missionary and go and provide aid for these people that don't get no help from anyone, and people forget about them. And that's what I want to, like now that's really what I want to be. And I thought it was oh, maybe I'll do it, maybe I'll go, but now I know that's what I want to do. So that's what I learned about.
Like Aileen, this trip really contributed to my growth as a student. Being that I'm a junior, I'm considering different majors for college. And one of the people that I met in Japan, his name was Danny, and he's a part of the JET program. And he told me about his major as an IR major, an international relations major, and that helped me really realize like what I want to do. And seeing where it took him, I wonder where it can take me.
Me personally, not only just being in Japan, but being with these people, it taught me myself that I have the ability to connect with others and just. Cause like we did not we barely knew each other like before this whole situation and just like the first day it was like what like we all connected really well and like I don't know, I just learned that I can, especially like with traveling and everything and just like meeting new people with people with new people, it's just it showed me that I have the ability to do anything. I have the ability to connect with anybody and maybe make an impact in the world.
So going to Japan, my entire my mindset has just like shifted from a 0 to 100. Like I've learned things that it's not always about you. It's not about what you can do for yourself or what others can do for you. It's about how you can help others, what you can do for everyone around you. So coming back, I've been more focused on helping individuals, and as hard as it is, as hard as it is, oh wow, as hard as it is, it's not a very easy thing to do, taking focus off yourself. But once you realize that you can take focus off yourself, you realize that you grow mentally, you like mature on a different level, and your spiritual level also rises. So it's like you grow within yourself by helping others, and others grow by helping you. So yeah, that's it.
Can I read a question from someone who's watching? A couple of you answered it already, but a viewer wanted to know, has the opportunity to travel to Japan changed what you hope to do in the future? I know some of you already talked about that, but for those of you who didn't, did it in any way, and if so, how?
So Anatolia, Jillian, and then Daniel.
It has strengthened my idea. For the longest while, I've been wanting to become a forensic scientist, and and going to Japan, individuals, they know what they want to do, and for people who didn't get to aspire to be what they want to be because of the impact that the explosion had on them, the entire disaster, I look into myself and I say, if you want to be something, go for it. You might not necessarily reach the goal, but at least you know that you tried. So I want to try and succeed my goal.
We went to a poetry museum. I forgot the exact location, but just going into the museum and seeing the artwork and the poetry and just like beautiful calligraphy, and seeing the house where I forgot his name. Sorry, I'm all jumbled up today.
Yeah, that's how I was too.
But just seeing like how, just like in Japan in general, like there's so much art. There is such beauty and like within whatever they make, and it's just so amazing. And me personally, I've always like wanted to learn the history behind art and how art affects society and how society affects art. And I've always wanted to go to college for that, and like just seeing how art is largely incorporated into Japan just makes me want to like just go learn more about it in college.
Alright, so for me, I feel like this trip has really helped me in my decision, and career-wise, I want to try and do alternative energy engineering. Because I feel like with the real issues of like climate change, it's starting to become a real issue, not only just for the climate, but also like energy. Where is our next generation of energy going to come from? And I feel like that's a very important thing that has to be discussed now, honestly, and have innovators take it to the next level.
Anyone else? Any other questions? Yeah, Bishop.
I would love to know how this has changed your thoughts about environmental justice locally, or your relationship to the environment locally. Like, having spent this time abroad, what are you thinking now about environmental justice here?
So let's go from Natoya down the line.
So environmental justice is like in every aspect of Japan. You can never find a trash can when you really need it, but the place, because we had a lot of trash, when you really need it, but the place was extremely clean. Oh my god, I can't find the word. It was really clean, and when I was on the train, it was silence, it was peaceful. It's like you can sleep on the seat. It was just like awesome. But coming back to New York and like looking at New York, it's very dirty. So when I've always been in the environmental club and looking at my community, not just throwing garbage when you feel like you want to do so. You find a bin, because bins are everywhere in this city, and you throw it, and if you're gonna throw garbage and you see something hanging off or anything, you can pick it up and throw it. So it changed my perspective of not, like as I said before, thinking of helping others, and the other would be nature in this case.
Okay, so Hurricane Maria happened and it hit Puerto Rico really badly, and it made it. That's like one reason why I wanted to come to Japan, so I can see their like how they went through it and how they overcame what has happened to them. And so just seeing how they're still rolling, they still got it. It just gives me hope, and it shows me, because like I know people in Puerto Rico who just like everything is just like completely lost, and like things just like washed away, and like just seeing how 7 years later, even though there are still struggles, things will work out in the end. As long as we fight for it, and as long as we make things happen, I know that Puerto Rico is going to be okay as long as we fight for what we know is right.
For me,
For me, what I learned about environmental justice is I hadn't really known a lot about the subject before coming to the trip, so the pre-institute and going there just helped me realize that youth can do a lot. Like, it's not just like an adult initiative, like our generation can do a lot, and I'm just hopeful for that.
So, when I started high school, I didn't know what environmental justice was. I never got taught what it was, and then I joined like ATRAP, and then we did a whole conference on it last year. So when I read the paper to go to Japan, there was like environmental justice, and I go to school by a pier where if a hurricane happens, my school's gonna be flooded. I was like, yes, this is the trip for me. So it was just like, it impacts me like every day. For example, even like now it's snowing outside, or it's like a bad storm comes, and it's gonna affect me personally, and where I go to school, and where I get my education, and where my peers get their education. So it's just going to Japan and talking to these people where they go to school, and they also went through what I'm fearing of in a couple of let's say months or years to come. I come to my high school to say hi, and it's underwater. Like, it's just certain things like that like impact me.
So for me, right, growing up, basically, I really didn't have an idea about environmental justice. But coming to the United States and joining Global Kids actually increased my knowledge about environmental justice. So I became passionate for it. So I became so curious about learning about the environment. And going to Japan, just like how we saw the video about Tucson speaking up for his community, helping them. So I think we should leave everything for the government. The government should come and take this trash out of here. I think as individuals, we have the right, we have the power to speak for ourselves. I think we should take action, even though other people don't want to take action, or the government don't want to do anything. But we as people, we can make a difference by contributing something to our community. So I think that environmental justice isn't just something for the government or something for the state head or whatever to do. But I think as individuals, we should take action on our community. So that's something I learned.
For me, environmental justice, it honestly means a lot of things, because to begin with, with Trump coming out and saying about several years ago, saying that climate change doesn't exist and it's just trying to continue forward, it's just kind of messed up. They try and brainwash people, and by the way it looks like he's just in it for the money. He's not thinking about long-term effects on everyone. And on top of that is I remember I was at a council on foreign relations last year, and one of the topic that was discussed, it was the first council on foreign relations, was on climate change and how people are trying to combat it. And when I heard that ice caps could possibly be flooding not only islands but even NYC, it kind of brought me down in tears. So even now it's I'm even trying to do research on the side whenever I can to see possible renewable energy resources to help for the future.
Okay, so personally, looking between the two countries, which the United States and Japan, I believe there's so much more that we can do. To be honest, like we need to take initiative and understand that it's not going to get any better any sooner if no one takes action. You know, we have to be able to like understand our situation and like take action, start cleaning up. It's not hard at all, because that extra time you take to just throw that cup away instead of throwing it on the floor, it can make a big difference. They can save lives of animals in the sea, save drinking water for everyone. You know, there's so much more we can do, to be honest.
Me, coming from a family who pretty much follows like a go green mindset, they reuse, reduce, recycle, all of that. It really didn't mean a lot to me. I just pretty much kind of mimic what they did because I thought, hey, it's my family. They know better than me, so I just pretty much follow in their footsteps. But recently, earlier this year, I did a workshop on the abuse of indigenous land, and when I was doing my research about it, I learned that certain environmentalists, there you go, pretty much get killed or assassinated due to fighting for clean water or clean energy and stuff like that. So it really pains me, and it pains me to see, and I was shocked by it because you could get killed even by doing the right thing, which sucks, and but the fact is that we're still fighting, and we can learn a lot, like like I said, from Japan. We can learn about how is it that we can bring their ideas and pretty much innovate that into the U.S. so we can grow a better and cleaner America, and of course for the world around us. So yeah.
I agree with what Brielle said about like us doing so much more to help clean the city. Maybe we could start by learning some like the ways, for example, Japan, how they kept their city clean. Like let's say in Tokyo, how there were less garbage cans. I'm not saying we should like take away garbage cans from the city, but I don't know, just keeping the city clean by picking up the trash you see on the streets, and if you see someone throw trash on the ground, like tell them in a nice way to like pick it up, or if they just leave, just pick it up for them.
What are the questions? Yes.
How was it dealing with like your daily schedule in Japan with the time difference and waking up in the morning and the jet lag, and how was that all affecting?
I think and then we'll go to Riel, tell them about the sleeping patterns that you put.
At night, I didn't sleep.
When did you sleep?
I slept on the bus, and I'm gonna be completely honest. Sometimes, when some people were speaking, catch a wink or two.
But he tried really hard.
Yeah, I tried.
Yeah, for me, when we first got there, like that first hour or two, I was like fine. I was like so hyped and pumped up. As soon as I get to the hotel, my body's just telling me, nope, it's time. You've been awake too long. And even on the way back, when I got back home the second day, I slept until like 4 o'clock. So jet lag was pretty real.
So my situation was just like real. It's like 12 hours difference kind of. So when you're at night here, it's kind of like morning or afternoon in America. So actually at night, I'm just on my phone, texting my mom and Lisa, because in America it's morning or afternoon. So it was really hard for me to sleep at night, to tell you the truth. It was really hard, but I got married.
So I'm opposite from everyone else. At night I slept. When I was in Japan, I was perfectly fine. Now when we get to America is the problem. When I got back, oh god, I stayed up 3 days in a row. I don't know how it happened. I didn't drink coffee, I didn't do anything. I would sleep during the day and be awake for the night. And my mom was like, what is wrong? I can't sleep. I just couldn't sleep when I got back.
Okay,
like I could not go back to sleep. I don't know. It's just like, but it was only the first day, and then afterwards, when it was nighttime, it was nighttime. It was bedtime. We had to go to sleep, and when I came back, it was normal. For me personally, the jet lag didn't hit me hard. I went to sleep when I had to sleep, and that was it. I just time-wise, scheduling-wise, like that whole situation. We were a little late sometimes.
GK classic.
Yeah, but honestly, we all tried really hard. I say for myself, like we really were engaged and we really tried to like grasp all this knowledge while being a little yeah.
The first day, it was okay. We were tired, that's it. And when it was time to sleep, we knocked. Well, I knocked. And then the scheduling wise, sometimes we had to be ready by 8 to have breakfast and leave by 8:30. So it was like a really hectic schedule for the days that we were in Fukushima, but in Tokyo it was fine. But when I got back, I had jet lag, but it wasn't all that bad. I went to bed at like 10, woke up at 3 in the afternoon. It went like that for 2 weeks. But
It wasn't that bad.
That's bad.
It was me. Mine was like over a week. Maybe 5 days.
Very good throw. Maybe one last question.
One last question, and then we'll wrap it up.
Regular question. If you guys could like go back, would y'all like go back, and how long would y'all stay?
Let's have everyone answer this, starting with Latoya.
if I could go back, I am definitely going back. So I would go back. I would want to go back to like spend a year in college. I'd want to go back for summers to spend time with my okasan, which is my mother, my homestay mom, which is gonna come and visit us next year in New York anyways. So I'd like to go back and spend time with a family that I built there, as well as spend time with the humans of Fukushima.
Me, I would like to go back and stay there.
Honestly, I think it was just like so amazing in general, and it's just like being there felt so right. Not gonna lie, it felt like I never left. It felt like, I don't know. It's just like when I got there, it was like, this is home. Like it just didn't change for me. It felt so natural to be there. So I felt like if I went back there, I don't know how I would leave. Like it was just so amazing.
If I could go back, I'd probably go back for a year, maybe study there, because I really want to deepen my connection with the students. I already made great connections and friendships, and I would just like to strengthen them, so I'd probably stay for a year.
Can I go somewhere else in Asia? Because I kind of want to go somewhere else in Asia. I love Japan. I love Japan. I would go back to Japan, but like I want to like visit different places. Like I don't want to just go to, I want to go to like Korea and be like, oh, this is like Japan, because you know, like
you want to see the
similarities
and the connections.
Yeah, like I want to go to China or like places, like different places. But I would go back and I'll probably go for like 3 months, 4 months. Yeah.
I would love to go to Japan and spend like a year or something. Actually, first a connection with my homestay mom, Kusan. She's a really, really nice lady. I hope my mom isn't watching this. She is really, really nice. Like I felt like a connection, like just like a connection I have with my real mom. She actually she is my real mom to me, and actually she taught me a little Japanese, which is cool. But I want to go back to Japan and study there for a while. I want to learn more Japanese, even though I know like basic. And also I want to like get to know more people. Like I've met some people, but I want to meet more people and draw connections with them. So I'm just all about making friends. That's it.
Okay. For me, I'd probably stay there. Who knows if when I get older, that's probably where I would retire, honestly. I would retire in Japan. For one, honestly, the family that I was with, it was like, they were like so connected to me that it was like, I don't know how appreciative I could have been, because it was like, they were offering me everything. Like even when I was like done eating food, they were like, you still want more? I was like, yeah, sure, why not? I was like, okay. And then they were like, on the last day, they were like, oh, out of all the people that have been to our homestay, you were the first one to eat everything. So I was like, oh, okay. No, actually, I did enjoy everything. And also just the culture in Fukushima is just like very relaxing. Everyone's outgoing, and honestly, I just felt great and like very relaxed over there in that area.
I know eventually somewhere down the road in life, I'll find my way back to Japan. And I'll bring my family with me definitely because, and more money, so I can buy more souvenirs. Yeah. But it's a beautiful place, and if I could pay for each and every one of you to have a ticket to go, I would, because I want everyone to to experience it. It's wonderful. It really is.
Alright, so I definitely agree with Real. To piggyback off what he said, I definitely, I'm gonna find my way back there, in a couple of years. Definitely visiting my home state family again, and if I could, I would definitely take my family and kind of take them through the same experience that, I had when I was this age. Kind of take them, from point A to point B to point C, and make them understand a whole different culture from the one they already know. So I can educate them, and so that they may also educate others as well.
For me, I would love to go back because the experience there was life-changing, because it was learning a whole new culture, the way things work over there, and I would love to if I could, I would stay there a year or maybe more. I would love to study more about the culture, because even though I learned 10 days really wasn't enough to learn, I would love to learn more.
Finally, as one last question, I'd like all of you to sum up your experience in Japan with a word, one word, or with a short phrase.
No, one word.
One word.
One word.
And we'll take the pressure off Maria by starting with you.
Is your word?
Life-changing?
That's a hyphenated one word.
Rejuvenated?
I say amazing.
Infinity.
Emotional.
Food.
Resilience. Inspiring. Undescribable.
We want to thank you all so much for coming. These guys are brilliant, and I'm a proud mama. But I think even more so than the facts that they could throw at you, the things that they know is absolutely mind-blowing. However, but the thing that I appreciate most is their power of human connection and empathy, and their real desire. Their desire to just know people and to love people and to honor people and to want their stories to be told in a way that they deserve to be told. So, please ask more questions if you want to. On your own time. They have a lot to say, they deserve to say it, and so I hope that you do take that opportunity. And we just want to say thank you again to those people who have allowed us to go. Please know the impact that you've made on our students, and also I would be bold enough to say on the people that we got to interact with in Fukushima. And so with that being said, thank you all, and have a good night.